This is a question sent to us by a lovely listener on Instagram,
Yes.
which is Help My Child's Anxious
Pod.
And this person is called, well, Linda. I'm going to call her Linda. She don't say her real name in case all her neighbours find out it's her and her child. Anyway, she says she's got a very, very lovely little girl. She's 9 years old, always very jolly and happy.
Yes.
Suddenly she's showing tremendous anxiety about not just going to school, but also pretty much leaving their house. And she thinks it's got something to do with lions. But they live in, an urban area where they'd have to travel an awfully long way even to go to a zoo to even have a look at a lion. Doesn't know what's going on.
So children will often pick quite an irregular thing to be anxious about that doesn't sound like something that we would think would be a problem at all. And that's because they've misunderstood something. They've interpreted something incorrectly. If you can see that the thing that they are suggesting is scary is something that maybe is a bit scary. Like, obviously, I also don't want to hang out with a lion. I think that's very fair. But I also have the understanding that there aren't any lions here. Children have obviously misunderstood something. So I would wonder firstly about what she misunderstood around lions. What have they been learning at school? Have they been reading a book about lions? Have they been somewhere where somebody was dressed up as a lion? What has made this child feel that a threat that's extremely far away is currently very close? So the way that we manage generally, the way we manage worries and specific fears and phobias is we consider firstly, where did this come from, and do we want to sort of like look around the area and see what's going on? But what we're really trying
So
to
it could
do,
be a travelling circus.
it could be
It could be a
absolutely
book that
anything.
they read, something they learned at school about
be anything.
gladiators. It could be absolutely anything. Something you've seen on TV and
Yeah,
didn't understand, or somewhere on social media that she
There are
didn't understand.
there are things in the curriculum that are taught to every child, like the Great Fire of London, that cause children every year to become fearful of fires, because the teachers don't teach the most important part, which is the Great Fire of London taught us a huge amount about fire safety. We no longer build houses that close together. We no longer use flammable building materials for the outside of houses. We use fire alarms and things like that.
Yeah.
And our job when our child presents a new fear that may become a phobia, which is just a very, very heightened fear that kind of derails them a little bit more, is to show them factually why that thing is not a threat for us now. Is it a threat in general? Would I want to hang out with lions? No, I really don't. So I can understand how a child has gone from being scared of a wild animal in general, because I wouldn't want to be face to face with a lion. So I can say to them, I totally agree with you. Lions are not the one. I definitely am not planning a safari trip. I'm definitely not planning to become a zookeeper. I'm definitely not planning to go to America where they have irregular laws on pets and have a lion as a pet. Like that thing during COVID with that fellow Joe Exotic, where you had that big zoo with all the lions. I'm not planning on doing any of those things. I'm not going to do any of those things. And so I know it's extremely unlikely I will ever meet a lion. I literally won't meet one. So I can understand that they're scary and also not be scared by them.
Yes.
I can hold two things in mind. And I'm going to show them things that make it very clear that we're not close to each other. So, for example, I will show them that we live in England and that most African lions, for example, live in Africa. And I will show them which countries in Africa the lions live in, where they are, how many hours it would take to get on a plane from here to there, and how it would be impossible for a lion to just walk from Africa to the UK because there's a big sea in the middle.
Paddington Bear came all the way from Peru.
Well, I would say he wasn't a particularly threatening bear. I think he was a
very friendly bear.
It was a delightful bear, and so I wouldn't be worried if he was. And also with more anthropomorphism than your average bear or lion, more human characteristics and cuteness than most other animals.
Yeah, true.
And he could speak English. If the lion could speak English, I'm sure we'd get quite a good chat out of him, which would be very, very helpful. So we're trying to show factually we are nowhere near lions. We're not anywhere near them. You don't have to worry. There will be one. There literally cannot be one. I'm happy to make a deal with you that we won't go to a zoo for a year. I'm happy to do any of those things that make it so obvious that we're nowhere near a lion. I'd also talk about the idea that, for example, generally people coming into our house, although people talk about it a lot, is still quite rare. I wouldn't obviously promise there will never be someone we're not expecting in the house, but I would really try and say something similar. I would never promise we'll never be burgled, for example, because we can't promise that. But I would say these are the things I'm doing to our house to make it really safe. I'm pretty sure the lion cannot open the door with a key. If a lion came all the way from a lovely national park in South Africa and then came all the way here, I'd be pretty sure it wouldn't be able to get in the house because I've got this special door. Look at my beautiful door, and I've got the Ring doorbell, so I'd be able to see where it was, call the pest control, tell them to come and get it. And I try and make it factual but lighthearted. I'd show them that I'm not worried about it. If it's a threat that is a present threat, like spiders or something that really could be in your house, I would be showing that they're not venomous, that even if a spider were on you, you'd be safe. I'd be looking for facts and figures as to why spiders are generally safe in this country. I would be, if I was taking my children on holiday to Australia where they have got venomous animals, I would explain to my children the things I'm planning to do, like stay in a hotel rather than an Airbnb, for example, that would show you that you'd be more likely to be managed in terms of animal experiences. I'm trying to show my child that there's an element of security in facts about animals or whatever the threat is. It doesn't have to be.
And will you be digging down to try to find out what it was that caused the fear? Something must have precipitated it.
So I'd be
Because
saying,
this
gosh,
was a
it's so
lovely, jolly
interesting.
little girl who wasn't worried about lions and suddenly is worried.
I say it's so interesting because we've never talked about lions before. I wonder what happened recently that's made you think about lions. I would really go in with the wondering, with the question how come rather than the question why. The question why implies that I think their answer is already wrong. Why don't you like lions is like, you're so stupid, you don't like lions. How come you don't? How come recently you've been thinking about lions in this way? Is genuinely curious with no prior plans or thoughts about lions.
So you've put a whole grid of facts in place.
I've got my grid of facts. I'm
Yeah.
showing how far away we are and being incredibly soft and gentle with them. And I'm understanding that if you were genuinely scared for your survival, you would be very overwhelmed and you'd be in what we call hypervigilance, which is when you become your own security guard around all things, noises, being close to other people, places that you go, food you might eat. You're going to suddenly be heightened in every area. And this child may have been heightened for a few months. Maybe they learned about it before Christmas and it's only just come out now, which means they've had a drip feed of additional cortisol around this particular issue for months. We're trying to rewire, we're trying to pull that back, we're trying to say there's no need, you're allowed to relax. I guess you've been really scared and now you're allowed to relax. We've talked it through. I've shown you so clearly that there's nothing to worry about. That doesn't mean it might not go away straight away, but we can both see there's nothing to worry about. So you can tell your body it's allowed to stand down. You can tell your brain we don't have to be worried.
So, Linda, I hope that helps. I hope that's made a difference. And it obviously applies to anybody whose child suddenly develops a pronounced fear of something or some event that they were never scared of before. That's the technique that will help, we hope. All right, so now it's time for Never Felt So Good. This is the fun bit. This is the thing that you can do with your child. And I must say, I did this with my children and always found it absolutely hilarious. It really worked for me. It absolutely tickled me to death. I used to love doing this. So tell me what it is.
So when we were kids, you had a very big bed.
Yes.
And because you were quite posh in the 90s, you had this very posh thing that when my friends came over, I'd always show them because it was extremely cool and really posh, which was like a big box table at the end of your bed that you had a remote control for like this. And then out of the box would come a television. It was literally the coolest thing ever. You don't have that anymore.
Don't tell them I lost all. I had to move from that house after a divorce and we never had that again. It was
maybe you're not that posh anymore. I'm going to just
not that posh anymore.
No, you haven't anymore got that really cool thing when you go like this and then the TV goes, you haven't got that anymore. It's a shame.